She told you she was happy, but the quiet distance in her eyes revealed a truth she would never say out loud. Something was missing, and it was slowly killing the connection you thought was safe. What I'm about to share with you is knowledge most men will live their entire lives without ever understanding. Women in the USA, UK, and Canada carry secret longings in their relationships that they have learned to bury because saying them out loud risks being misunderstood, judged, or desired for the wrong reasons. These are not the surface answers you hear in polite conversation. These are the deeper psychological truths that actually move her, that make her feel seen, safe, and powerfully drawn to you again. The first thing she secretly wants you to do, but will never ask for directly, is to lead with calm emotional certainty instead of waiting for her to set the tone of the relationship. She wants you to be the man who decides the direction with confidence, not because she wants to be controlled, but because she is exhausted from carrying the invisible mental and emotional load alone. For years, she has been the one noticing when things feel off, planning the important conversations, managing the mood, and trying to keep the spark alive while pretending everything is fine. That constant management slowly drains her desire. This truth hits hard because most men were taught that being agreeable and letting her lead was respectful. In reality, it often leaves her feeling like she has two full-time jobs, her own life and the emotional management of the relationship. When a man steps into calm leadership, when he plans dates with intention, when he addresses tension directly instead of avoiding it, when he holds his own emotions without making them her responsibility, something shifts in her nervous system. She exhales. The constant scanning for problems stops, and in that space, her attraction doesn't just return, it deepens. Female psychology is wired to respond to this kind of grounded strength, not aggression, not dominance. Strength that says, "I've got this," without needing to shrink her. She wants you to do the work of staying steady when life gets uncertain, to make decisions without endless debate, to speak your truth clearly instead of hoping she reads between the lines. These actions tell her nervous system that she can finally rest in the relationship instead of always driving it. The reason she will never say this is simple and painful. Society has taught her that wanting a man to lead makes her weak or old-fashioned. She has been told that strong women should want equal everything at all times, so she stays silent while quietly losing respect for partners who force her to lead emotionally. She watches friends in relationships where the man provides that calm direction and sees the difference in how alive those women seem. And she wonders why her own connection feels more like a negotiation than a sanctuary. This is where your self-improvement becomes non-negotiable. If you want to be the man who touches this hidden desire, you must first develop your own emotional backbone. That means doing the hard work of regulating your moods instead of bringing every anxiety to her. It means learning to make plans and follow through. It means building the confidence to lead without needing her constant approval. Men who do this work stop chasing her affection and start creating an environment where her affection returns naturally. Women listening right now are feeling the weight of this in their chests. Many of you have stayed in relationships where you ended up managing a grown man's emotions while pretending it was partnership. You carried the mental load of remembering everything, softening every conflict, and keeping the peace until one day you woke up emotionally numb. You don't want to control him. You simply want to stop carrying him. When a man finally does this one thing, when he takes the lead with respect and consistency, the change is visible. Her shoulders drop, her laughter becomes real again, her touch carries new warmth, she stops testing and starts trusting, because she finally feels like she has a partner instead of another responsibility. This truth is heavier than most dating advice because it forces you to look in the mirror. Have you been waiting for her to set the emotional temperature? Have you been avoiding hard conversations, hoping they would resolve themselves? Have you been mistaking passivity for kindness? If the answer is yes, then you have been missing the first secret longing that lives inside most women. The mentor reality is this. She doesn't want to dominate the relationship. She wants to feel safe enough to soften inside it. And that safety comes when you consistently show up as the man who can hold the frame without becoming rigid or reactive. When you do this, you don't just fix surface problems. You reach the deeper place where her unspoken desires live. Understanding this single truth changes how you show up in every interaction. Your texts become more intentional. Your presence becomes more solid. Your leadership becomes an act of love instead of control, and she feels it immediately. The women who never hear this truth often spend years in quiet resentment, wondering why they feel more like mothers than partners. The men who never learn it keep losing the women they love to emotional exhaustion, never understanding why their kindness wasn't enough. This is only the beginning of what she secretly wants you to do. The rest cuts even deeper into the psychology of modern relationships and what actually creates lasting desire and devotion. She said, "I'm fine," for the 100th time, but the heaviness in her voice betrayed her, because what she truly wanted was for you to see past the words and touch the part of her that was quietly drowning. The second thing women secretly want men to do, but will never directly ask for, is to hold space for their full emotional truth without trying to fix it, dismiss it, or take it personally. In a world that constantly tells her to be agreeable and low maintenance, she carries years of unexpressed feelings, contradictions, and vulnerabilities that she has learned to hide. She wants you to be the rare man who can sit with all of it, the anxiety, the anger, the sadness, the intensity, without becoming defensive, without rushing to solve her, and without making her emotions about your worth. This longing runs deeper than most men realize. Female psychology has been shaped by constant pressure to perform emotional perfection. She learns early that certain feelings make her too much, so she edits herself. She softens her tone. She says she's okay when she's breaking. She manages your reaction even while she's hurting. Over time, this creates a special kind of loneliness where she is loved but never fully known, and that loneliness slowly erodes desire. When a man learns to do this one thing, when he becomes someone who can listen with steady presence instead of anxiety, her nervous system responds with profound relief. She doesn't have to manage you while she's trying to share herself. She doesn't have to water down her truth to keep the peace. For the first time, she feels safe to be fully human with you, and that safety is one of the most powerful triggers for emotional and physical reconnection. Most men fail here without knowing why. The moment she shows anything difficult, they panic, they get defensive, they launch into problem-solving mode, they withdraw, they make it about their failure or their frustration. Each of these responses teaches her the same painful lesson. Her real feelings are not safe here, so she stops bringing them. She starts saying nothing's wrong even when everything feels wrong. And the relationship slowly dies from 1,000 withheld truths. The hidden psychology is clear. Women test not because they want to play games, but because they need to know whether you can handle the full weight of who they are. When you pass that test by staying present, grounded, and non-reactive, something shifts inside her. The guard comes down. The softness returns. The desire that felt dead begins to wake up again. Not because you said the perfect words, but because you finally became a safe place for her entire emotional world. This truth is especially heavy for women aged 30 to 60 who have spent decades managing everyone else's feelings. Many of you are exhausted from being the strong one, the understanding one, the peacemaker. You secretly long for a partner who can hold your complexity without crumbling or criticizing. You want to be able to cry, to rage, to feel uncertain, to show the messy parts, and still be met with steady love instead of discomfort. For the men watching, this requires real self-improvement. You must do your own inner work so her emotions don't trigger your abandonment wounds or your ego. You must learn to breathe before responding, to ask questions instead of giving solutions, to say, "Tell me more," instead of, "You shouldn't feel that way." This is not weakness. It is strength of the highest order, the kind of strength that makes a woman feel truly safe to surrender her guarded heart. When you master this, the change in her is unmistakable. She stops walking on eggshells. She stops performing the easy version of herself. She begins to share thoughts she once kept locked away. And in that sharing, intimacy is rebuilt at a level most couples never reach. She starts looking at you differently because you have become one of the only people in her life who makes her feel truly seen. The reason she will never ask you to do this is because asking would defeat the purpose. She needs to know you can do it naturally, from your own maturity, not because she had to train you. Every time she has to explain what she needs, it reinforces the painful belief that she must manage the relationship even in her most vulnerable moments. This is one of the great silent killers of modern relationships. Two people who love each other but cannot truly see each other. Two people sharing a home but living in emotional isolation. The quiet tragedy of being loved for the representative self while the real self slowly fades. The mentor truth here cuts deep. Your ability to hold space for her without needing to fix or flee determines how fully she can love you. Men who develop this capacity stop losing women to emotional distance. Women who experience it often say it feels like coming home to themselves. If you have been watching the woman you love slowly shut down, consider whether you have been meeting her emotions with presence or with panic. The answer may explain more than you want to admit, and changing it may be the exact thing that brings her back to life in your arms. The relationship looked perfect on the outside, yet she felt emotionally numb beside you, slowly dying inside because the man she fell in love with had disappeared into someone safe, agreeable, and utterly predictable. The third thing she secretly wants you to do but would never admit is to remain a man of strong boundaries, decisive action, and unapologetic masculine presence even while loving her deeply. She wants you to stop shrinking yourself to keep the peace. She wants you to hold your own frame instead of becoming whoever she seems to want in the moment. This isn't about being harsh or domineering. It's about being solid in yourself so she can finally relax into her own femininity without having to carry both of you. This truth is one of the most uncomfortable for modern men to hear. You were taught that being nice, accommodating, and conflict avoidant was the key to keeping her. In reality, that approach often leads to her losing respect and desire. When a man erases his edges to become the perfect partner, he stops being interesting to her nervous system. The polarity that created the original spark disappears. What remains is two people who are polite, but no longer magnetically drawn to each other. Female psychology responds powerfully to this kind of grounded strength. When you maintain your boundaries, when you say no with respect instead of people-pleasing, when you pursue your own purpose instead of making her the center of your identity, something primal wakes up in her. She feels safe because you are not needy. She feels desired because your interest comes from strength instead of desperation. She feels alive because there is contrast between her softness and your steadiness. Most men never learn this. They become so afraid of losing her that they lose themselves. They text too much. They seek constant reassurance. They abandon their own goals to focus entirely on the relationship. They avoid any tension even when it's necessary for growth. Each time they do this, her attraction fades a little more. Not because she wants to be treated poorly, but because she cannot respect a man who has no respect for himself. The reason she stays silent about this desire is painful. She has been told that wanting a strong man makes her anti-feminist or damaged. She fears that admitting it will encourage toxic behavior instead of healthy strength. So she says she wants a nice guy while secretly losing interest in the ones who become too nice. She watches men who maintain their backbone and purpose and feels an pull she cannot explain without sounding politically incorrect. This is where self-improvement becomes painful but necessary. You must rebuild the parts of yourself you abandoned to win her approval. That means rediscovering your own mission, setting and holding boundaries even when she tests them, speaking truth instead of softening every statement to avoid conflict, taking decisive action instead of waiting for her permission. These behaviors are not games. They are the foundation of real confidence that women feel at a deep psychological level. When you begin doing this, the shift in her is dramatic. She stops taking you for granted. Her respect returns. Her playfulness comes back. She starts initiating contact again because she feels the contrast of your strength against her vulnerability. This is the polarity that creates lasting chemistry in long-term relationships. Not constant fighting, not drama, healthy tension between two people who are both strong in their own way. Women listening to this are recognizing the quiet boredom they have been feeling. Many of you have watched your partner slowly lose his edge and wondered why the spark died, even though he became a better man on paper. You don't want to fight. You don't want cruelty. You simply want to feel the presence of a man who knows who he is and isn't afraid to be that man while loving you. The heavy psychological reality is this: desire requires contrast. When everything becomes comfortable, agreeable, and predictable, the nervous system registers it as emotional flatline. She may stay loyal, She may say all the right things, but something inside her begins to grieve the loss of aliveness. And that grief is what eventually leads to distance, resentment, or sudden breakups that seem to come from nowhere. The mentor truth most couples never learn is that being a strong man and being a loving man are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. The strongest men are often the most loving because their love comes from choice instead of fear. When you embody this, you stop chasing her and start becoming the kind of man she naturally moves toward. If your relationship has lost its fire, ask yourself honestly whether you have slowly erased your own edges to keep her comfortable. The answer may explain why she seems present but emotionally unavailable, and changing it may be the exact thing that brings the woman you love back to life in your presence. This hidden desire reveals how little we actually understand about what creates lasting attraction between men and women. The next truth cuts even deeper into the places she has learned to keep completely silent. You thought the relationship had settled into something stable and mature, but deep down she was quietly grieving the loss of feeling truly pursued, chosen, and desired in the way that once made her heart race. The fourth thing she secretly wants you to do, but will never say out loud, is to continue pursuing her with confident, consistent initiative even after the early days have passed. She wants you to keep choosing her actively, instead of assuming the relationship will run on autopilot. Not in a needy or overwhelming way, but with the kind of steady, intentional effort that reminds her daily that she is still seen, still wanted, and still worth your best energy. This truth strikes at the heart of why so many long-term relationships lose their spark. Women are told that mature love means comfort and security. What they rarely admit is how deeply they still crave to be actively courted by the man they chose. The small but consistent actions, the deliberate presence, the effort to keep the emotional connection alive instead of letting it coast. When those things disappear, she may stay loyal, but a quiet sadness settles in her that slowly kills her desire. Female psychology records this shift as a kind of emotional abandonment, not because you stopped loving her, but because you stopped showing it in ways that reach her nervous system. She notices when planning dates becomes her job, when compliments become rare, when physical affection becomes routine instead of intentional, when conversations stay on the surface because pursuing deeper connection feels like too much work. Each of these small failures tells her she is no longer worth the effort she once inspired. The reason she stays silent is heartbreaking. She fears sounding needy or ungrateful. She has been taught that asking for continued pursuit makes her high maintenance. So she suffers in silence while slowly detaching from a man who believes he has already won her. This is one of the great tragedies of modern relationships. Two people who still love each other, but have stopped doing the things that made them fall in love. When a man understands this and begins doing it again, the transformation can be dramatic. His consistent initiative creates renewed emotional safety and excitement at the same time. She stops feeling like a roommate and starts feeling like a woman who is still being chosen every single day. Her responsiveness returns, her warmth returns, her willingness to invest in the relationship returns because she no longer feels taken for granted. This is where real self-improvement separates good men from exceptional ones. It requires the maturity to keep showing up with the same energy years later that you had in the beginning, to fight the natural drift toward complacency, to make her a priority instead of an assumption, to notice her, study her, and continue learning who she is becoming instead of assuming you already know everything. Men across all ages need to hear this clearly. Your leadership, your presence, your ability to hold space, and your continued pursuit are not separate things. They work together to create the kind of relationship most people only dream about. When all four are present, she doesn't just stay with you. She becomes deeply devoted because she feels both safe and alive. Women listening are feeling the ache of recognition. Many of you have slowly accepted a relationship where you are loved but no longer pursued. You tell yourselves this is what happens when life gets busy. But in your quiet moments, you remember what it felt like to be wanted with intention, and you grieve that loss. The heavy psychological truth is this: desire is not something that can be set on autopilot. It must be fed with consistent action. The man who understands this stops wondering why she pulled away and starts becoming the kind of partner who makes pulling away impossible. He becomes dangerous to her defenses in the best possible way. These 4 hidden things she wants you to do are not about manipulation or games. They are about showing up as the complete man she has always been hoping exists. A man who leads with certainty, a man who can hold her truth without breaking, a man who maintains his own strength and boundaries, a man who continues to choose her with intention long after the honeymoon ends. If you take only one thing from everything I have shared, let it be this: the women you love are not as complicated as the world makes them seem. They are simply waiting for someone brave enough to do the things they have learned never to ask for. Now I want to ask you a personal and honest question. Which of these 4 things have you stopped doing in your relationship? And what is one specific action you will take this week to change that? Answer below in the comments. If this video touched you or made you uncomfortable in the way truth often does, like it, subscribe for more raw psychological insights into relationships and self-improvement, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this before it's too late.